CES happened not too long ago, and there was a very, very apparent theme going on, whereby if you were a company and you had a product, the number one label you slapped on it was AI. Even if it didn't have AI, you say AI is coming as a feature set and you could put AI on the product. And I could see that a lot of saturation is going on with everyone screaming from the rooftops that they're going to have AI or AI is happening. And it reminds me of a lot of the early days of blockchain, where everyone was super excited about how blockchain was going to revolutionize the world. And even if you had a toaster, it had blockchain on it. Well, those days have come and those days have passed, and blockchain's still here, but it's not as prevalent or omnipresent in all the trade shows as AI is now. And there's simply because people have had time to adapt, to get used to it, and really to understand the main purpose of a blockchain is really just a glorified account ledger. So it's not the future of money. It's not the future of all this. It's literally to help other companies discover how well they could track things in a semi-inefficient manner, but with checksums, what it comes down to. Well, what does this have to do with AI and trade shows? Well, right now, despite what tech companies are screaming from the rooftop that AI is everywhere, and they're not wrong, but it's everywhere in a very limited subset of the overall market. For instance, when I go down to Dunkin' Donuts and I go ahead and order a coffee, I'm not talking to an AI, I'm talking to a human. When I go to the post office, I'm dealing with another human there. So in most people's day-to-day lives, AI isn't really impacting them. And there's a potential that it really could be involved in those roles. There is some difficulty with getting them directly involved in that, yes, as some grocery companies have discovered with self-checkout, the reason why their self-check is preferred is most of the time people could shoplift using self-checkout. So there's been a renewed push to get rid of self-checkout. But I think that is a misdirection from the fact that AI could impact those jobs. You could very well have an AI cook food, an AI take an order, and an AI deliver the food. In fact, we already see this level of automation going on here in America, where you press a button and out pops a hot bowl of ramen or whatever else. We already have robots that are able to cook food in predetermined measures. And in fact, we've already seen that with enough training, AI can quickly replicate very complex cooking tasks and be able to identify what they're given. It wouldn't be that hard to have a fully automated restaurant where the only cost you're worrying about is an internet connection, electricity, franchise fee, and internet. And that's all you really have to worry about. So it really can change fundamentally the cost structures and make even fast food cheaper, because if you don't have to worry about labor costs, which are your most expensive cost in a business, and you replace it with an AI and a robot, because believe me, it's happening, then people could do things much more productively. I recall not too long ago that, the reason why people are working at McDonald's is that because, they just want to be able to get enough to live on and proceed. And so they fight for a minimum wage. All good and fair. And I believe and I fully support them in their fight for the minimum wage. But you really have to ask, is that a job worth doing to begin with? I believe that most people at this point would clearly say that working at these franchises tends to be a BS job, because you do all the work, but the owner collects the net share and the lion's share of the profits. They're the ones that succeed, whereas the workers who are actually doing the hard work aren't really getting the best benefit they could than if they were, by comparison, an owner. So if these workers were freed from these essentially BS jobs, what would they do if they had an assistant with them that could turn their ideas into products, that could turn their ideas into services, into software, and it's extremely cheap and affordable? What would someone do if they had economic agency? And that's really the promise of where AI could come in is that when AI lifts enough people out of the situations that they find themselves in and gives them an opportunity at economic agency, which it does and it is doing, what would they do with their time? Would they just sit around all day and laze about? Or would they say, hey, I find meaning in solving these problems. I didn't know how to solve them before, but now I have this incredibly smart friend, this AI assistant who's with me, who can now help me solve these problems. If I have an idea for software, I don't have to spend 3 years in school. I can now say, hey, I want to make this a reality. How can we do it step by step? And the AI say, no problem. And it will start helping them assemble this software that they could then use to say, hey, this is a really great idea. I can now start testing out customers rather than having to spend 4 or 5 years pursuing a computer science degree, spending tons of money on that, and then discovering that, hey, no one's hiring you, which is happening now in the world of tech because AI is impacting tech first. And we see that a lot of people who thought their jobs were secure in this economic environment where it was easy money, and they got hired straight out of college without any experience, and they go work for the FANG companies and they'd be earning $100,000 trying desperately to find a project to attach themselves to. Oh, don't believe me. In fact, there was a story about this, I remember, where a person fresh out of college got hired at Facebook and they were assigned a team with no work. And so they would go about looking for how to create essentially useless productive work of testing the Meta headset so they had something to do. That easy era money where you just get hired because of a CS degree behind your name is gone. And it won't ever come back because all that easy money was fueled by boomers. And those boomers are retiring. They're leaving the stock market and they're taking that money with them. And so the easy money era is closing, which is why all these companies are saying, hey, do people deliver economically viable impact for our bottom line? If they're not, we'll let them go. That's why there's tons of layoffs in tech. But that doesn't mean that just because you're laid off, you can't produce things that you love, that other people love too, and you could do it with AI extremely cheaply. In fact, that's one of the most surprising things with AI is as people have needed it more, its costs have only dropped as time's gone by. And in fact, sometimes you can't even beat free, where if you buy the hardware, you could run a local LLM and have that generate whatever stuff you need right on site. So you could conceivably buy one of those Macintoshes with integrated memory, has 128 gigabytes right now, and you could run these very complex models right on your machine and create software of your dreams right on it. So I'm saying this as a more uplifting measure. I know that there's a lot of negativity and thoughts of chaos that AI will bring, but in reality, AI is probably the most positive, disruptive technology we've seen in an incredibly long time. So with that, I'll see you next week.